including the U.S. government. They got a lot wrong. He might be getting stuff wrong.
Sure.
But he's not a nut.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not a nut, and he's not a nut about COVID either. Or
Bill Maher brought on a couple of woke guests onto his show, Real Time with Bill Maher, and when this one guy, this Michael guy, said something about RFK Jr. that is just absolutely so unhinged, so deranged, Bill Maher was forced to shut him down, and actually shocked his audience quite a bit how hard he went on this guy. But he did just have to check him. And I said it once, I've said it a million times actually, but I'll say it once again. When Bill Maher is forced to shut you down for being too woke, you know you have gone way too far, because Bill Maher has said some absolutely insane things in the past. So whenever Bill Maher is the one having to shut you down, you know things have gone too far. Let's get into this clip here where Bill Maher does shut down this woke idiot for an insane take about RFK Jr.
You know, Marianne Williamson is at 9%. So you have a chunk of people, and we talked about this in the main show, 70% of Americans don't want Joe Biden to run again, 50% of Democrats. There are people looking for alternatives, and I really wish it wasn't Robert Kennedy, but the DNC right now is, you know, lining up the troops and going to prevent him from doing any damage. They're not going to have debates. There's not going to be no primary debates. He's just going to be pushed aside. If he's running as a Democrat, if he decides to then run as a third-party candidate, you have a Perot situation.
And why don't you like him?
Why don't
I mean, you said you wish it wasn't him. Why?
Yeah, I wish it wasn't him for a variety of reasons. I mean, you know, Kennedy said something in 2013 that, you know, frequent guest on the show, Matt Welch, just tweeted about, was, you know, he thinks that, you know, climate deniers should be put in jail. There should be regulations against people denying climate change. His past is checkered with this stuff. It's not just the vax stuff. I don't get into those issues. I don't know a ton about it. That's not my area of expertise at all. You know, he said too many nice things about Hugo Chavez in Venezuela, as his brother Joe has too. It's just a very weird, and he's becoming more conspiratorial too. The sort of they are censoring me all the time. I just don't. You're a Kennedy. Your last book sold 2 million copies. No one's censoring you. So I don't like.
Buddy, you know you can sell. That's like saying, dude, you have an email list of 10,000 people. You're not censored. That doesn't make any sense. You don't need anybody else to sell books. It's a person-to-person transaction. Yeah, you can list it on Amazon, and if Amazon wants to take you down, they can. But that doesn't mean that whenever you're trying to advertise a book that is listed on Amazon, that they can't, you know, shadow ban your video or take your videos down or whatever. If you think that RFK Jr. hasn't been censored, you're insane, dude. That guy has 100% been censored, and not just censored in the sense that like his reach is hurt, but censored in the fact that he's shunned from every scientific community, censored in the fact that people try to, you know, disparage his name, and, you know, they make fun of him constantly for his speech patterns, and they dude, if you just watch left-wing media, it's kind of sick how hard they go on RFK Jr. for no reason. I mean, I get that they don't agree with the guy fully. And it's funny because he probably aligns with the left wing a lot more than he aligns with the right wing, right? Like on things such as gun control. He aligns with the left wing more than he aligns with the right wing. So the left wingers hate him because of the jab stuff, which it just still blows my mind, right? Like the left wing, who was supposed to be the party, the side of rebels and hippies and stuff like that, they are supposed to be the anti-jab people. But they're not. It's like they're the establishment's PR team now. So whenever someone attacks the establishment, even if they align with them on most issues, they hate the person, and they make fun of him so much for so many different things, you know, the condition that he has and all that stuff. And it blows my mind.
That kind of instinct is not my kind of
right. But they won't treat what he is saying about COVID with.
No, of course not. No.
But they should.
Yes.
I mean,
yes,
like many people who've written about COVID, including the U.S. government, they got a lot wrong. He might be getting stuff wrong.
Sure.
But he's not a nut.
Yeah, I mean,
he's not a nut, and he's not a nut about COVID either, or vaccines.
If you enjoy content like this, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
Well, the thing about this is that, you know, it's hard to tell these days. It's hard to tell because you could get kicked off of Facebook, of YouTube, of all this stuff for saying that this came from a lab in Wuhan. Not from a wet market in Wuhan, but the lab that did bad viruses that was down the street. That got people, like lots of people, not just like one errant person that was kicked off once. No, this was very, very common. That was all of these things you couldn't say then, which are now conventional wisdom.
what we know about medicine is always changing on a day-to-day basis. I mean, just last year, they got metabolism wrong. They came out with this big report that said we'd always thought it was slow down in age, and it doesn't slow in age. That's kind of a basic part of our health. And you can read stories like that almost year to year. They also got depression wrong.
But isn't it funny how people still think that way? Like, I hear all the time that, like, oh, you know, when you're in your 20s, it's so easy to keep the fat off, but once you get 35, you know, it's just so hard. Like, I can't keep the fat off anymore. Isn't it funny how if humans are told that something works a certain way, their brain, like your brain is so powerful that if you just fully believe that something is true, it ends up just being true. Isn't that so wild? Like, imagine all the things that we think we know right now that we have just convinced our brains that are completely true, that aren't actually true. And it just works that way. Our body does something to make it seem that way. Like it always just wild to me. I know it's kind of off topic, but yeah, this guy just got absolutely shut down by Bill Maher for trying to say that RFK Jr. is a nut. And it's wild to see people like Bill Maher now have to admit, and not just admit, but also correct other people who aren't saying things like this about the origins of the 2020 stuff and the truth about it, and the fact that the government got so many things wrong and all that stuff. It's cool to see people like Bill Maher actually do stuff like this, because he was not doing this at all at the time. And look, I'll give him some grace, because even me personally, let me know in the comments if you're the same way. Whenever all that stuff started to pop up, I was a little bit scared. You know, I was like, I'm ready to stay home from work. I don't want to catch that stuff. I have no idea how bad it's going to be. And I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments saying, oh, I always knew it was a common cold. I knew it the whole time. No, you didn't. There's no way that we could have known. There's no way that we could have known how bad it was going to be and what would actually happen to you if you caught it. We didn't know. So I was scared. So maybe Bill Maher was just scared, and now he's turning it around and he's realizing the truth. And, you know, I'll give him some grace on that, but at least now he's making up for it by correcting these woke idiots whenever they say just ridiculous things.
Oh, it wasn't the serotonin. Okay, I'm not saying it's corrupt, although there is quite a bit of that too.
100%.
Somehow when it's the Sackler family with the opioids, it's like, oh, see, corporations and pharmaceutical companies, but when it's COVID, oh no, they must have everything on the up and up. Okay, but say it's not mostly that. They were trying and they did a great thing. They came up with a vaccine which most people needed, and have saved millions of lives. That's true too. Robert Kennedy may not agree with that, but I think that's true.
But your point is entirely correct, Bill, which is I think a lot of people have forgotten how we got to be successful in the West. And part of that is freedom of speech and freedom of research, right?
Especially in science.
In science,
especially
right?
in medicine.
We need people to be able to talk about the facts. And when you have some kid who works for Twitter in the Philippines censoring a Nobel Prize winning scientist in his speaking about his area of expertise, I think we've lost the plot.
Right.
100%, man. And what Bill Maher just said is facts, and what Constantine just said is also facts. But what Bill Maher said, and that this, like, science is changing all the time. I don't think we should stop with science changing. You know, every time there's a new discovery, it shouldn't be censored just so that we can stick to the past and make it seem like science is always ironclad. But if science is always changing, then people who are questioning science and trying to push it forward, or trying to just make sure that the science is correct, they shouldn't be censored on any platform. Like Constantine is saying, there's some kid in the Philippines who is moderating Twitter and taking down posts that RFK Jr. is making and stuff. That is a problem, especially whenever a lot of the stuff that RFK Jr. was saying ends up being true. Like if he was saying, some outlandish stuff like, if you take this, you're going to turn into a werewolf overnight, then it's like, okay, maybe you can have some grounds for like censoring him and saying, hey guys, actually the community notes thing is actually really good, where it's like, this is not true at all. Like this is just blatantly false, versus a theory that some say are true, some say isn't true. It should just all be left out there for everyone to see, for everyone to be able to interpret, gather all the information possible, and make your own opinion and make your own choices. There shouldn't be censorship just to protect science and scientists and their ego. And then, like Bill Maher said, there's a ton of corruption involved as well. There's a ton of people who make way too much money off of people being sick, and they bring in the solutions to them, way too much. I don't know what the solution is, but Bill Maher is correct that there's way too much corruption in that industry.
I mean, one final point on this is the number of people that were wearing T-shirts that said, "I believe in science." Science became this thing that was the conventional wisdom coming from the government, from the CDC. Yeah. I believe in that. That's what they're talking about. You cannot believe in science. Science is a process.
Right.
Science is always changing.
Right.
When people thought I could believe in science, they thought it never moved, and they were surprised when it did.
And that's the thing. The left, the far paranoid COVID left, talks about science like it's religion. The science.
Yes.
While they're doing things like wearing masks alone outside.
Yes.
The science. What does the panel think of Steven Spielberg saying he regretted replacing guns with walkie-talkies in E.T.? Yeah, he re-edited E.T. and now he's regretting that, and I'm so glad he is. He's saying movies were made of a certain time. They're all going to look weird in the future in some way. Leave them as they are. I think it's terrific.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's spot on there, man. I love to see Bill Maher and you know, shutting down this woke idiot for calling RFK Jr. a nut, but also the audience, you know, applauding stuff like this. It's just such a signifier that the tide is turning. Truly, it truly is. Let me know in the comments, though, what you guys think about Bill Maher shutting down this woke guest for these unhinged attacks against RFK Jr.